What is up, everyone? Welcome to another Win by Noon Monday webinar. Hope all is well. I think you all know me, but I'm Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon, and I'm dedicated to help you help you reach your potential, whatever you believe it to be. And I'm always excited when I can have none other than Deborah Byrd from PlugandPlaySM as my co-host. What's going on, Deborah?
Yay, happy Monday. I love starting the week with these calls. It's a good way to start the week. So thank you for having me, Todd.
I'm just grateful you're here because, it makes it much more fun than just me talking the whole time, because I think people just would be bored with that. Maybe not.
Especially now that we have it figured out where it's not just going to be on me the whole time. I can't believe no one said anything on the earlier calls.
Well, hopefully. So hopefully when I'm talking, you guys see me, and when Deborah's talking, you see her. Is that how it's working for all of you? Someone will have to tell us.
Yes.
Someone will have to tell us. Let's get some chat going there. All right. Yeah. So it's working. That's good. It's just funny how the Zoom thing works. Every once in a while I figure it out. And I got this extremely bright light right here. Holy smokes. Is it bright?
Woo. It looks good.
It's blinding me, but that is okay. That is okay. It's showing off my paleness. I got to button this up so you don't see just how my rest of my body is pale. It looks like from here I'm really tan, but look at that. That's for my hiking. All right. So, I just wanted to come along today and really think about a couple of questions that I've been thinking about. I've been asking others, and maybe people should ask themselves. They're not really in any particular order, but I've been talking a lot about it. I've been going recently to I call it a group. I don't know what you would call it. It's a weekly realtor gathering. And there's a guy named Steve Chater who puts it on. And Steve Chater, some of you may have seen me years ago. I've interviewed him in the mortgage coach community. Steve is the partial owner of a Keller Williams franchise. He's been in the business for a really long time. And he is the co-author of a book called Hold. So it's part of the Keller Williams investing series. And I really like Steve a lot. I learn a lot from when I'm around him. And he's invited me to these lunches. I've gone on and off for a couple of years, but I've recommitted myself to show up. And he had someone get up there and speak today. And she really talked about how she was told that she would never be able to be a salesperson. She was told by other people around her what she could or couldn't do. She talked about when she switched companies, how she was told that they didn't want to bring her over because they'd done a personality test and she didn't have the right personality, even though she was a top salesperson at that other company. And it really just seemed to me as an observation that people were putting ceilings on her. And for a while, when she talked through her career, it seemed like she was putting those ceilings on herself. And so my question for you today is, what ceilings are you putting on yourself that are keeping you from growing to wherever you're trying to grow? And so the word I put in alongside of it is vision. Like, how strong is your vision of where you're going to go, especially in the shifting market? So that's really was kind of my initial conversation starter. Deborah, what do you think on that? What people putting ceilings on themselves? Have you ever put a ceiling on yourself?
I mean, the hardest thing I ever did is when I chose to leave teaching and go into the mortgage business, where I didn't go from like a countrywide or, I say big box bank, but I went from a salaried position that was very dependable. And it was scary. I mean, I told myself I'm not a salesperson because I looked at it as, loan officers. And even when you look at the perception, I can't remember what it is now, but it's like, you're almost the equivalent of a used car salesman. So I thought my whole DNA and the identity I'd given to myself from starting schooling as to be a nurse, and then I ended up being a teacher. I was like, I can't, that's the dark side of the world. I don't want to be a sleazy, slimy salesperson. And I even see it with my clients who adopt that same thought process when they then take their consulting of what they do and they go to social media or go to one-to-many. It's so hard for that shift to occur where you allow yourself to not, you don't, just because maybe that's how it was in the past doesn't mean you have to be a salesy, slimy, slick, manipulative salesperson. So yeah, I mean, that was really scary. And then when I chose to leave mortgage and just burn the boats and start my own company, where I was scared. I was nervous. I could make a lot more money in mortgage if I kept doing mortgages, but it was also soul destroying at the same time because it just wasn't what set my soul on fire, and I felt guilty admitting it. So some painful lessons learned to get there.
Well, I love that. And I think that's a whole different conversation, because you burned the boats and you went out and started something on your own, which tells me you had the vision, you had the passion to do it, where other people might, find that as a limiting belief. Because I feel like when you've got a really strong vision of where you're trying to grow and who you believe you can become, then I know you'll become it. Right. I mean, for me, I've always felt like vision is that it's that magnet that pulls you. And when you have vision, even if you don't look at it often, one of the things, when I was coaching full time, you'd have someone, a lot of people wanted to know, they want help with a business plan, right? Hey, like help me with my plan, or they wanted help with their priority management, their day-to-day, but I really couldn't help someone with their day-to-day unless I saw their business plan. I really couldn't help someone with their business plan unless I knew what their business vision was. Like, really, where are you trying to go? And if you've got a limiting belief, I think that that's a challenge. And it's really what I love about this community. I love about the other communities that you and I are involved in together, because I feel like we continue to see people who, hate to say it, they're like the rest of us. They're all like, just like you, who you all look up to and think are doing something amazing. But maybe the only difference between them and you is their belief in themselves and where they think that they can go. Because I do find that when you look at the who's who of all the people that we interview, they are always, I don't want to say that they're always the most confident people. They're always very confident, but even you'll find a lot of the very confident people will still have a little bit of self-doubt. And so my encouragement, of asking the question, especially as we kind of shift in this market, is to have you all think about, where is it I'm trying to go, right? What's my vision? What I really see myself digging into, right? Because a goal is just a wish unless you're really going to take action behind it. And the same thing happens. I think you've got to have this vision for where you see yourself being down the road. And when I first learned vision, it was like 5 to 10 years down the road. I think that's really too far. I think you got to look, go look 3 years in your vision and then back it up to, hey, where do I want to be at the end of this year? And then you can start figuring out what's the business plan I have to get there. But my bottom line is that if you're allowing somebody, even yourself, to put a ceiling on that, that's where you're going to run into trouble. And that's where you got to look at the people that you're hanging around with, right? When I got in the mortgage business, I was with people who were big thinkers, but they weren't thinking really big. They really weren't being intentional with where are my opportunities to grow, and then scheduling the time to do it. So that's my initial question and thought of the day.
So Todd, how do you, because I have been coached before, been told, and have people around me that are like, when is enough going to be enough for you? How would you, I mean, obviously I put ceilings on myself, and for my vision, the hardest part is I never think it's going to be as challenging as it is. Like in my mind, I always think it would be a little bit easier getting there. And I wasn't prepared, I guess, for some of the challenges that I just assumed would be easier. But I have people in my life that are constantly telling me, when is enough enough? Like, when are you just going to unplug and just coast and, not make it so difficult, or not always have to be working or be on?
So are they saying it from a financial perspective or a success perspective, or you think they're kind of intertwining the two together?
I think both.
Yeah,
Both.
I think it's a hard one, right? Because I feel like, I oftentimes when I'm talking to people who are driven, like you and I are driven, oftentimes the initial piece is financially driven because we're trying to provide for our families. Like I always say, when I was really trying to grow as a loan officer, and I don't think I was the best human I could be, right? I was credit, Coach Bill Hart and Building Champions with not just making me better in business, but more importantly, making me a better human, right? They helped me become a better husband, a better father, a better leader, a better friend, a better son, a better brother, all the things that were really way more important to me if you would have actually slowed me down enough to ask. And so for me, what I really became crystal clear on was what became before, right? Priority management, business plan, business vision. And then the step before that, which I've taught in this community before, is life planning. And once I got crystal clear on what was important in my life, then I didn't let it impact my willingness to continue to push on the business, right? Because I still continue to push on business. I still want to grow the business bigger. I still want to grow financially. It's a different financial reason, right? I don't have to have it. Before, it was out of desperation and keeping a roof over my head. And, now it's really about building legacy, when I look at it from that perspective. But it always comes back to really the building blocks of life planning, which is schedule those most important things first. Because once I scheduled the family vacations, right? I mean, it because we talk about it here before, right? I whip out my big calendar. Just email me, Todd at winbynoon.com. I'll send you the PDF version of it, but you can see mine's all colorful and it's got all these things there. My wife was like, I let her write something on my calendar yesterday. She's like, but you can't use that pen. It's too thick. You got to at least, write small, but I did let her write on my calendar. She's like, well, you let Giselle write on it. But ultimately what I did is I made sure that those most important things that everyone expected to be at were on my calendar. They were in pen, not in pencil. And I made sure that I was there. And then eventually I made sure I was there and present, right? Because again, if you're there and you've got, oh, hold on one second, right? If you've got the phone out or you're texting and doing those things, but I made sure I became there and present. It wasn't overnight. It was a journey. But then no one ever asked me that anymore, because for the things that were important, that I said were important, I made them important. And oftentimes the only, I think, risk there is when someone was asking me that, when they asked it to me, they were thinking it from the perspective that I was the one who, showed up the last minute for the family events. I came in on the phone. And then I'd be like, oh, sorry, I got to go meet these realtors or whatever it is I had going on. And once I was present and I was there, it took them a long time to notice it. Like even today, my dad will always say, you're always on the phone. And it's funny, I have not for years been on the phone when I hang out with my parents, but he still thinks it. I think he's confusing me with my brothers, but that's okay. He puts me in that. So I just do my best to not say, hey, dad, you're wrong. I actually just do my best to leave my phone away so that he sees it and that he gets that. But I think that they saw I was so driven and that it was my behaviors that did it. So now once I've made my life plan my most important thing ahead of my business vision and what I did, then no one could really ask me that, because I was present for the things that they felt were important. And that's always the hardest part, is that, again, it shouldn't really matter. Some of the people who would ask me that transparently weren't the people who I needed to answer to on that. The people I needed to answer to on that was really my wife and my kids, for me personally. And they weren't necessarily asking me that because they kind of knew why I was driven that way. But thankfully other people asked, that made me look at my relationship with them.
I think it just also goes back to teams, like building a team. I just remember as a loan officer, that was the hardest part. To then you think you get people in the right places, and then you could be at the weekend, you're at a baseball game for your kid and something's happened and you've got to jump in because it wasn't done right. I mean, I think that's where coaching is so essential when you're growing a team or hiring humans and learning how to hire correctly and fire quickly. I mean, I still struggle with that. I think probably everybody does. Um, but anyways, that's when I usually find myself being not present. When I have time that is planned, usually every weekend I'm at a tournament of some sort. And so if something comes up that's last minute, it's like, oh.
Yeah, it reminds me, because I actually just pulled up the quote because I listened to it in a podcast, but I know the quote. It's from James Clear in Atomic Habits. It's, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And so there's this whole idea that if you're going to do all these things, you've got to have systems. And if you don't have a team, you can still have systems in place. And for me, I think this part of that system would be setting expectations and, being unplugged, because it's the whole, I've said it a lot before, right? You get what you tolerate, and really whatever, you allow is what's going to happen. And so if you are allowing, if you don't want to work on Sundays, but you answer your phone and reply to emails and texts on Sundays, then guess what? People are going to think they can email and text and email you on Sundays. If you choose not to do that and you ignore them, then you let people know, hey, I saw you called yesterday. Hey, that's a time I take for personal time with my, my friends and family, or with my family. People totally understand when they know that's the expectation in my experience. And then, but when you're making that transition, you have to let people know, hey, you know what? I know I've been available on Sundays, but hey, going forward, I'm actually got stuff playing with my family. And so just, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I want you to know, hey, your business is super important to me. But I'm going to make sure I call you every Thursday. I'm going to check in ahead of the weekend. So if there's something you need, that I can get it done and knocked out so that you won't need me on Sunday. And, you set that expectation, and I think people are good with that.
Well, it's kind of like what we did this quarter. So I know you were on that email, but we had a few clients that we were still doing manual posting and likes and comments on Saturdays. And finally, as a team, we were like, you know what? We're only going to work Monday through Friday. Weekends are our time. That's our time to refuel. It was something that we offered in the very beginning, and we were kind of going back and forth on, are those posts even most productive when people should be intersecting their feed with personal posts? And so anyways, I think it was these types of calls that gave me the courage to say, you know what, I know there's a segment of our database that is used to us doing this on Saturdays, but we're going to just, set the expectation and push it on them. And my whole team, I mean, it was like they could just breathe, and it allows them to enjoy their weekend, because it was just that little, even though it maybe only took a couple hours on a Saturday, it's like, when it's a holiday or the weekend and you want to travel, that's your time to unplug. And so I'm thankful for you, Todd, and some of the others on this call that I can see that also allowed us to do that and have our weekends back. So
Well, of course, I should
Thank
give
you.
you a plug. You all know it. I use PlugandPlaySM for not just Win by Noon, but also for the Modern Mortgage and Modern Real Estate Summit. So super grateful. If you need help with your social media, I would definitely be reaching out to Deborah and following her and her team. And, I just feel bad for any of you if your birthday happens to fall on a Saturday or Sunday this year, and I don't wish you happy birthday. Sorry, it wasn't me wishing you happy birthday before anyway. Although unless you're in my text community, then it is actually me who texts you happy birthday. Someone was shocked. Is that really you, Todd? It is me. So, but I probably shouldn't have said that. I'm not wishing them happy birthday, but I did actually call somebody who's been a longtime member of my really small first coaching group. And I wished her happy birthday today. And she said that she almost was going to reply, "Thanks, Deborah," on my Facebook post, wishing her happy birthday. So I was like, all right,
Oh,
you got to be careful what secrets you share out here in this community.
yeah, that's
Um,
true. Now
so I
you
love
just
it.
need to send me a video of you saying, "Hey, just wanted to wish you happy birthday," and we could just make that like a private message. Although now everybody just heard that.
Yeah,
So
all right. Well, that's a great idea. I'm not going to do that, everyone. So if you get that from me, it's really from me in the future. I love it here that Larry says he went shopping for a car this weekend. It's my least favorite thing. Somebody told me the other day that they become a different person when they shop for cars, which ironically I had to admit I do too, because I get less patient for their process of their sales process that they try to put you through. But yeah, I agree that we aren't the worst business in the world. At least I think in our community for sure, Larry. I think that's extremely true. We've got such a great such a great piece. And what do we got there? What's that bowl you're showing us?
come here. You can say hi. I had my son, Legend, he's my youngest, bring me this bowl with flowers in it. Thank you. Very sweet.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. We're finishing up. Thanks, bud.
Bye,
Sorry.
legend. Good seeing you.
Say live like a legend.
Exactly. Live like a legend. So, yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. I'm going to talk more about that whole idea of that, you don't rise to the level of your goals. Fall to the level of your systems, or whatever, that James Clear quote that I just gave you. Because I do think it's important. I think the other thing that I would love to talk about here, they kind of tie together. So this was a question that Steve asked, or a statement he made. He said, the market of the moment requires you to have a message of the moment. And it's what is the unique conversation that is making you different. And then he read some quote, and then I was half paying attention at that point because we were leaving, we were walking out the door. And there was some study that he mentioned that just came out that more or less said that people felt like 80% of, this is what my takeaway from it, but I'm going to get the article and I'll find out. It's written here in my planner. I have to ask Steve for it, but it was the way I heard it was, and I want to make sure I don't spread erroneous information, but the way I heard him say it is that there was some study that said like 80% of people felt that the real estate agents really weren't, giving them the proper message, right? They were just trying to sell them something. And so that's why I thought to myself, okay, what is your unique conversation that is making you different? And what I'll say about that is a couple of things. It was a funny weekend here in Arizona because I got a text middle of last week that was Dave Savage saying, "Hey, I'm going to be in town. We should get together." The day before he was showing up in town. So I got to have dinner with Dave on Friday. And then while we're sitting there having dinner, Renee Rodriguez is in town doing Amplify. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm just going to eat dinner." We were already done, so he didn't want to come join us, but I went over and I hung out with Renee while he ate dinner, and just was fun to have a conversation with Renee, not here on Zoom. We have lots of meals in small groups at, the events that we do together, but it's just really the first time I've had one-on-one time with him face to face and talk about it. But it reminded me of the conversation that we had on his last call where he said, if he had 10 people lined up. So this could be, he was talking about loan officers, but it could be 10 of you real estate agents as well. And he asked you, is this the opportunity? Is this the right time for me to buy? He said, based on how you answer that question, he could determine whether or not you're one of the top salespeople. And he said, there's probably 48 ways to answer that question, but you should know and be comfortable and confident in all 48 of those. So when Steve said, what is your unique conversation that is making you different? I just want to encourage you all to know your market, to understand what it is you need to be thinking about. And so how can we help these folks, Deborah, with their market of the moment message? Because I know you're the social media queen, and that's part of the way we're going to do that, as well as one-on-one with clients.
Well, I think the first thing is you have to remove that motive of you're just going for this sale. I mean, you have to really genuinely care and want to help someone. And it could be, now may not be the right time for you to buy. That would require a conversation for us to dive a little bit deeper about what's going on in your life and what's coming in the future that you're aware of to even know if that's responsible. But those are the types of messages you can be sharing on social. And I always like, and I know Renee would probably agree with this. It's this whole storytelling concept of, in fact, I had posted this in my group, and I was actually, and in your group, Todd, I was blown away on my private group, the way one of the loan officers responded. But I had asked, because this is real. All of you could do this, whether you're a real estate agent or loan officer. But what problems can equity solve? And really, if you peel that back, it's what are the money problems that people have right now? That whatever the money problem is, if they own real estate right now, perhaps equity could help solve that, whether that's selling the home, doing a cash out refinance. But one of the responses, which this is what I mean by storytelling, you could make it a video series for this month. Maybe it's every Monday. You're gonna share how equity can transform lives, and this is how. He said things I've used it for personally. Speech and occupational therapy when my son was first diagnosed with autism, and insurance was going to take a year. His mother's funeral, down payment for a house while the other one was on the market, a business to launch so that they could go head first, an investment property that my customer backed out on that was too good to pass up. Anyways, there's like several examples, but I thought, how powerful is that to be able to unlock equity to help someone whose child was just diagnosed with autism, who needed therapy, and they didn't have the cash to be able to do it in any other way, or they would have had to wait a year. And so sometimes, unless that seed is planted and you use it as more of a transformational, like these are real world problems going on that average people, just kind of like the start of this call, that we have, and especially when inflation's going up, what could we, and again, not revealing anyone's personal or confidential information, but it's sharing the problems you solve from a genuine, empathetic, nurturing. It may not be a solution where you're doing a cash out refinance if you're a loan officer, but maybe that's bringing it back to the agent, and maybe the family's going through a hard time and they're going to divorce, and it's like they need advice on a good agent that could represent both of them. I mean, whatever it could be, life happens. And so how are you showing up and consistently allowing people to see that these solutions that you have, unless you go online and you share it? Because if you don't, you're risking someone else doing it. And now they're going to go follow and get advice from that person simply because they were willing to put themselves out there. So you just have to take the motive out of, you're not trying to gain anything. You're trying to share and inform and advise and connect. And it may not even be in your same state. Like you may have to give the referral to somebody else. I love how my market or clients are now sending business like to each other just from knowing that they're in the group. And it's because they all share the same motive and passion of helping people in whatever capacity that could be. Did that answer
Well,
your question? Don't
yeah,
know.
I love it. I love it. I think the biggest part is, and my takeaway from there is you're sharing stories, and sometimes the story is your own story, right? I mean, we learned that from Renee, right? And the whole amplify process is really sharing from the heart, and that's how people are going to connect with you. But they're also going to connect with you if you can, with permission, without names, share someone else's story. Because really, what you're trying to do is figure out where are they, right? We want to uniquely see them, right? To quote Coach Carvel, something that I know you are passionate about. And you want to figure out, and they want to feel good about it. And it's kind of like, when I got comfortable enough to say, gosh, after the financial crisis, I was, pretty beat up, right? I owned 5 houses that were, all underwater, and we're somewhere, between negative $750,000 and $1 million. And when I got comfortable to share that story with clients that, hey, I've made every mistake that there is, when they're feeling uncertain about the fact that, they had a credit card late or whatever it was, back, thankfully it's been when I was mid in my 20s, but I had plenty of credit card lates back then, right? I wasn't always the steward over my finances that I am today. And people feel good when you can share the story if it was you personally, but sometimes you can't. I mean, you probably, could be perfect. You maybe have never had that challenge, but you can always then share, gosh, you know what? I just helped a client. They were in a really similar situation, right? It's kind of that feel, felt, found, right? They were feeling really bad. And oftentimes, and what I could see that they felt bad about what their past was, but really what I found in our conversation was by sharing with them experience of other clients who had been in the same situation and have now turned around financially, how well they're doing. It's the whole idea of helping someone feel comfortable with it. Cause I think that's part of that whole idea of, if you're going to have a unique conversation that is making you different, it comes back to connecting, right? I say that a lot in my group coaching, program, is that, connections matter in 2022. And I said it in 2021, I said it in 2020, I'm going to say in 2023, connections matter. They matter more than ever, always, but they always matter today, right? The connection that you can make with someone today, I think, is what a great opportunity.
Well, I think when you say, how are you going to be unique? I mean, if there's anyone that struggled with that, I was an identical twin. I shared the exact same DNA with the mortgage nerd who was like a local celebrity. We both did the same thing in the same market for the same company. And I had this, I always felt like we had to be just alike. And I color a little bit outside the lines. For those of you who've met Denise and I, she's a little bit more conservative and reserved. I'm a little more of a, statement, but for so long, really up until probably, gosh, I'd say 6 years ago, I always tried to be in that box because I was almost like an extension of her brand. And I even would allow her, because there'd be times where she would say, you can't put that on social media, or, don't wear that, or don't say a curse word or whatever it was. And I wanted her approval. And I thought, okay, society always wants identical twins to be just alike. So I thought I had to be just like her, when the more and more I just finally was like, you know what, this is who I am, love it or leave it. And I learned that it was okay. It's like more and more people are like, but that's what I love about you. Like, we love this about you. And really, when I went to Amplify, Renee really brought that out, where he was like, you're not anyone's shadow. Like, because we were delivery table surprise twins. He's like, you've always been a statement. Like, you kicked her out first. And anyways, and so it was a very, it's like that butterfly moment where it sometimes takes other people to believe in you, or to point things out that you kind of already know and you want to believe in, but it may take someone else noticing it or saying it. And then it's like you can adopt it and own it, like, kind of loud and proud, and just say, you know what, this is who I am. And that is what makes you unique. It's just being you.
Well, I love that. So this is my homework for all of you. Besides coming up with your conversation that you're going to have, that's going to help your clients feel good, actually feel great and amazing about working with you, right? We're going to come up with how we're going to answer those questions so that we're super confident, but really look for opportunities to help raise people's ceilings, right? Look for opportunities for someone around you who you see maybe putting a limiting belief on themselves. It could be a coworker, could be yourself when you're looking in the mirror, could be a spouse, could be a child, whomever you think that is, and give them a flip that light switch up, as Daniel Harkavy would say, right? Flip that switch up, and really help them see that who they are. Because ultimately, right, I look at Deborah and I think, oh gosh, as long as I've known her, she's been super confident and all that stuff. But now I hear that story and I'm like, all right, now I got to make sure I flip up that switch and tell you, because that's what I love about you too, Deborah. I love the fact that that you do think outside of the box. I love the fact that you are so passionate about what you do. I love the fact that you're wearing a freaking golf shirt because all your clients like the Masters, but you don't really do much with golf. I'm like, all right, see, you're all in to support those around you. And me, what am I doing? I'm just wearing my Win by Noon summer uniform, because that's just me. I'm boring. I'm not as cool as you are. But I think that is, that's my homework for all of you, is to look around and see who needs that light switch flipped up, who needs you to help raise that ceiling up, and then work on the conversations that you need to have in this market of the moment, because people are nervous right now. People are worried that they should buy or finance a home. And the bottom line is that your market's going to be different than Deborah's market or my market, but be the expert on your market, give them the data that they need to make decisions, and then tell the story that needs to be told so they understand it. Not the BS car salesman story that we were talking about over here in chat, but the story that really matters, that will help them make the best decision for them and their families.
Ooh, that's good. It's deep. I like
It
it.
is deep. That is deep. Like, and look at it, it's right at the 30-minute mark. Like, we're crushing it.
Yes.
We're actually going to get done on
Yes.
time, unless, you want to go off on some other tangent. What else? Once you put your bow on it, and that's my bow.
So this is how I would leave it. It goes to the Win by Noon weekly quote, ironically, but it says, a positive attitude causes a chain reaction of positive thoughts, events, and outcomes. And so when I read this quote, I thought, this week I'm going to be very intentional of trying to catch people doing what's right and looking at the positive side, which is also a Coach Carvel, moment when he would say, why not me? Or why not? Or that's good. I think that's what he said. Is that right, Todd? That's good.
Yep, that's good. So that happens. He said, that's good.
When you have a positive attitude, and you're looking for the good that people do, including with my kids. Cause let me tell you, there's times like I had walked into the bathroom and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. It's clogged. And they just keep going into it. I'm like, really? But I'm going to be intentional of trying to always point out the good, because whenever there's bad, there's always, that's the law of opposites. There's something good that can come from it. And when we do that, I do believe that we're going to have more positive outcomes because we're just in that mindset to receive. So that's how I would put my bow on it, is this week's monthly or weekly quote from Win by Noon.
Love it. Love it. Well, as always, I'm super grateful that you took the time to watch us, whether you're watching this live on live with Deborah and I now, or you're watching on video. If you're watching it on YouTube, definitely please give us a like and subscribe. That apparently is good for the algorithms, according to my social media bestie here. And thank you, Deborah, for always making this way better than it is if it was just me. We look forward to seeing you all next week. Same time, same place.
Bye.
All right, have a good one.